Hello, this is Janet Michael. In addition to hosting The Valley Today each weekday at noon on the River 95.3, I also produce podcasts, and I'm excited to introduce you to a new podcast series in partnership with Lord Fairfax Community College. Having provided higher education and career training for the past half-century, LFCC is tightly interwoven into the fabric of the Northern Shenandoah Valley and Piedmont regions. Join me every week for conversations with current and former students to hear their funny and inspiring stories as we learn about their journey to higher education, the role that LFCC has played, where they are now, and where they plan to go. We'll also talk to current and former professors about their experiences and best memories of LFCC over the past 50 years. Get every single episode as they're released on our website at theriver953.com under the podcast tab, or you can subscribe for free in Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, on Spotify, Amazon Music, wherever you listen to podcasts. Just search for LFCC Stories. Hello and welcome to The Valley Today. I am your host, Janet Michael. Happy Tuesday. As you are listening to the show today, it is Tourism Tuesday, and we've got a special treat in store for you because we are going to be talking with the Museum of the Shenandoah Valley. Nancy Huth is on the Zoom screen with me, pre-recording our conversation. And Nancy, I understand you guys have a really cool new exhibit of Norman Rockwell stuff. And I'm excited to hear about it. So give me the details.
Well, we do. We have an exhibition that we recently opened called Norman Rockwell's America. It comes to us from the National Museum of American Illustration and the American Illustrators Gallery. We worked with them before when we had a Maxfield Parrish show a few years ago. So we were very excited to talk with them about bringing to us an exhibition of the work of Norman Rockwell. So the show is really exciting because it provides this kind of overview of his career from his early work in the 19-teens to his some of his last work with the Saturday Evening Post in the 1960s. It has original paintings, it has preparatory sketches, it has drawings, it has posters, and not last but not least, it has 323 Saturday Evening Post covers that feature his work. So it's got a lot of pieces in it. It's a really great opportunity to see how he worked and painted from very early on to later in his career, and to see various steps of it, and to see some of his most famous works, like the Four Freedoms posters and a few things that were never published, actually.
It was interesting. Julie sent me over the quick introductory video that she had produced with you talking about the exhibit. Oh, yeah. And I learned a couple of things in there that even I didn't know, because I think we all have these preconceived notions of what we think about Norman Rockwell. There's a lot more in this exhibit than what we may even know.
Yeah. Well, I think everyone thinks about him as being this sort of small time guy, but he was actually born and raised in New York City. And he trained from a very young age to be a professional illustrator. So he went to the National Academy of Design. He went to the Art Students League and took classes to become this illustrator. But he lived most of his young life in New York City. So it wasn't until I think the later teen years that his family moved to New Rochelle. And then he, as an adult, moved on to Vermont and then later Maine or Massachusetts. So he's got a more urban origin than we may think.
It was interesting too, in that video, you were showing some of the prep. I was going to try and say preparatory, but I can't say that word. So the prep work that he would do for the Saturday Evening Post covers, and they, in a lot of ways, were even more beautiful and detailed than what we ended up seeing on the cover of that magazine.
Yeah, I mean, his preparatory work included in the exhibition ranges from, we don't have the really rough sketches that were always the start of a cover idea, but there are a step that, what did he call them? He had these highly finished, he called them layouts, these very highly finished charcoal drawings that were the same size as the final painting. The final painting itself, that's the thing that always seems even more detailed than the cover. And the reason it does that is because the paintings that he would take to the post to be reproduced as covers were always larger than the covers. And he said it was a traditional illustrator's trick to always paint the final painting larger than the cover so that when it was reduced in size, it still retained a good number of the details that you were able to capture in the larger size. And it seems to me that the longer he works for the Post, some of his paintings in the late 40s get quite large. I mean, I would say they're, well, 10 times larger than might be an exaggeration, but they're quite a bit larger than the covers. And then in addition to that, we don't have any represented in our exhibition, but he also took a lot of photographs to use as reference material. He would put photographs in a opaque projector and project them onto a larger sheet of paper to help him work out very specific details, a traditional illustrator's tool. And one of the other steps he did is that he would sometimes have he worked with a whole group of photographers. He rarely took the photos himself. And one of the things he would have his photographers do is once he had worked up his full scale layout drawing, he would ask a photographer to photograph that and print it onto a matte photo paper. And then he would paint on top of that to work out the color scheme. So we have one example like that where he's worked out the color scheme on top of photographic paper, and he's just working out like what colors are going to go where, working out the values, making sure the color works convincingly to suggest the space he wants and that sort of thing. And next to it is another oil sketch like that, not on photographic paper, but based on a final layout. So someone was asking me at the opening, because we have all of if we have a Saturday Evening Post cover that relates to a painting or a drawing or a sketch, we've put that cover next to the original work. And someone was asking me why that little sketch was so rough versus the finished cover. And the answer is that there's this completely finished preparatory drawing and a highly finished oil painting that kind of link that sketch to the cover. That was a long explanation, but that's basically.
Well, and it's interesting too on a couple of things, because, as you're explaining what that process was, it dawns on me how far technology has come from those kinds of things. But at the same time, not really, because even now, if you have a photograph, the larger the original, the easier it is to shrink versus the smaller. It's very difficult to enlarge. So some things haven't changed.
No, and I was thinking, I'm dating myself, but I took a commercial art class or like an illustration class when I was in college, and graphic design, there we go. and I remember all of this work with like tracing paper, which is what Norman Rockwell did. So he might, one of the steps he would take is after, let me make sure I get this right, after he had that final drawing laid out, this relatively large scale drawing, he would trace it onto large scale tracing paper. He would take that tracing paper and affix it to the canvas that he was going to paint on. And then between that traced drawing and the canvas, he would put transfer paper, like carbon paper, but not that messy. And you can still get this stuff today. And then he would trace again to transfer his drawing to his canvas. And I remember doing stuff like that when I took that graphic design class way back in the olden days before computers. I mean, now I'm sure most students kind of work up their final compositions in some sort of graphic design software, but at the time we did an awful lot with tracing and transferring and all kinds
pencils,
traditional illustration techniques. So I mean, even painters for centuries, once you have your preparatory drawing, had ways of working things up into a larger format without the aid of electricity, for instance, Renaissance. So it's just, here you are, this artist, you've got this final thing, you need to get it onto another surface. What are you going to use to do that?
Now, he considered himself to be an illustrator. He never really referenced himself, I understand, as a painter or an artist in the general sense. He considered himself to be an illustrator, and that was his art in that way.
I mean, the way I understand it, I haven't read all the biographies, and something I read just the other day suggested that he realized his strength was in illustration. I can't remember how the author put it, but as far as I can tell, he always talked of himself as an illustrator rather than a quote unquote fine artist. So he didn't think of himself as like, Picasso or Jackson Pollock or one of the other 20th century modern artists, but he was well versed in the history of art. He was a great fan of the 17th century Dutch artists. He had Rembrandt reproductions hanging in his studio. He loved Picasso. He apparently admired the abstract expressionists, and his studio and his homes would be filled with art books of all kinds that he was constantly leafing through for ideas and suggestions for technical, probably solve technical problems. So he was well versed in the history of art, and I think he at some point took some what we might call fine art classes, but he always thought of himself as an illustrator, doing his work, basically for a client.
So what made you choose this as the new exhibit at the Museum of the Shenandoah Valley?
Well, we have had a number of exhibitions that focus on illustration, for instance. So we had our artists who have worked commercially a lot. So we had a Muka exhibition, we had Alex Ross, we had Maxfield Parrish, and they've always done really well. And our audience just really responds to that kind of that aspect of art. And so as we were thinking about this, one of the museums that we'd worked with before had some Norman Rockwell exhibitions available, but we couldn't get the timing to work out. So we started to think about, Norman Rockwell. If you think about illustration, he's probably the first name that comes to mind. And so when we were working with the National Museum of American Illustration a few years ago with the Maxfield Parrish exhibition, we just sort of threw it out there like, oh, we'd really like, and they said, oh, we have Norman Rockwell exhibitions to lend. But the reason we wanted to do it is because we really felt that our audience would respond to it based on other things that they'd done. It's very possible that someone wrote about it in a exhibition evaluation and said, hey, how about Norman Rockwell? I just seem to remember it was an idea we'd been tossing around for a while. One of the things we try to do with our exhibitions is host exhibitions that will have broad appeal for our audience. I mean, not all, but some. Host some of our exhibitions to really be fulfill that enriched part of our mission, especially over the summer when we tend to have the largest visitation. We like to host an exhibition that we hope will be of interest to a lot of our visitors.
So how long is this exhibition open?
This one's a long one. This one and the next exhibition, both, we scheduled to run as long as possible. So this is actually going to be up through the summer and doesn't close till August 8th.
So plenty of time to get to the Museum of the Shenandoah Valley and see it.
And hopefully, restrictions will continue to loosen and we can allow more people into the galleries, but we are open. People may come in if they're wearing a mask. And we do have a capacity for the galleries, but it's relatively generous and we haven't really hit it during our regular open hours. So lots of opportunities to come and see the exhibition between now and August 8th.
Well, and I would think too, to a certain degree, it's a little bit of a silver lining with the COVID because now I can come see it and have a little more space and take a little time to really enjoy and absorb what I'm looking at.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And just watching people thus far in the exhibition, they love the Saturday evening post covers, which are more or less installed chronologically. But if you're familiar with our galleries, it's not just one big room. So there's a lot of little nooks and crannies. But people seem to really be responding to the Saturday evening post covers. So at one point, we weren't sure we would be able to fit them all in, but we did. and it's not even overcrowded. So that made me happy. So they're all there for people to look at.
Fantastic. Well, Nancy, thank you for taking some time out of your morning to give me all of the details for the Norman Rockwell exhibit. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
We are going to take a quick break. When we come back, I've got Julie Armel sitting in the waiting room on the Zoom screen. She is the Deputy Director of Community Relations. She's going to give us an update on the trails at the MSV when we come back. So hang in there. We'll be gone just for a few minutes.
Got a financial decision to make or a goal to reach, but you don't know where to start? You've come to the right place. Introducing Quick Money Chats with the Northern Shenandoah Valley Financial Education Program. Visit tinyurl.com/quickmoneychat to schedule a virtual chat with a staff member or trained volunteer. We won't tell you what to do, but we will give you the tools you need to choose wisely. And because Virginia Cooperative Extension is part of Virginia Tech and Virginia State, your land-grant universities, you can be sure that our information is credible and trustworthy. And you'll know that we aren't trying to sell you something. Maybe you want to improve your credit score, or reduce your banking overdraft fees, or even figure out if you can afford to buy that car. Sorting through tons of information on the internet can be overwhelming, and sometimes it can be hard to know who to trust. Schedule a quick money chat and get the information you need to take action. Go to tinyurl.com/quickmoneychat and get financial education personalized for you.
Welcome back to the Valley today. I am your host, Janet Michael. Happy Tuesday. As you are listening to the show today, it is Tourism Tuesday with the Museum of the Shenandoah Valley. In the first segment, we chatted with Nancy Huth. She is the Deputy Director of Arts and Education at the museum, and she gave us all of the details about the Norman Rockwell exhibit that is going to be open through August or until August. Julie Armel is now on the Zoom with us as well. She is the Deputy Director of Community Relations. And Julie, you kind of have all of the other things, because the Museum of the Shenandoah Valley isn't just about an art exhibit. You guys have so much going on over there.
We do. And it's so great to be with you. Thanks for having the museum on Tourism Tuesday. And hopefully, the sunshine is getting people ready for spring, and just mark your calendars. The 7 acres of formal gardens at the museum open to the public on April 1st. So I know everybody's itching to get outside, and the gardens certainly are lovely, but there's a great opportunity to get outside at the museum right now. I'd like to invite folks to visit the trails at the MSV if they haven't already.
So that we talked about the trails when you were on the show last, and I think they were just getting finished. So they're done. They're done and open. As see, the dog's very excited that the trails are now open.
And the trails are they are dog friendly. All we ask is that you come on a leash. So we love to have the puppies on the trails.
That is fantastic. And do they start at the museum? I mean, kind of give me a visual kind of tour of where I go on the trails.
Sure. Well, first I'd like to say the trails are, it's a art park at the Museum of the Shenandoah Valley. So when the trails opened Thanksgiving weekend, an additional 90 acres of the museum landscape open to the public as a free admission art park. And we know with COVID and folks wanting to, get outside, we opened the trails while they were still a work in progress. So we're still wrapping up one section, the Wetlands Boardwalk, that'll connect to Amherst Street, but there are 3 entrances to the trails, or there will be when the wetlands section is finished. There's a new entrance to the museum on Amherst Street, close to James Wood Middle School. There's a pedestrian entrance, on the other side of the property, and then there'll be another pedestrian entrance about half a mile down on Amherst Street as well. So there'll be 3 entrance points to the museum and the trails. And it's a network of hiking and biking and walking trails. So there really is no starting point or ending point. Folks can walk as much or as little as they want. And, I'd invite them to hop on our website and download a map to the trails and check them out. And we do hope that the wetlands section, which will feature a floating boardwalk, which is really exciting, will be open early April. We're just got a little behind with some of the snow we've had recently.
And this was quite an undertaking. I mean, this wasn't something where, hey, let's do some trails and then suddenly they're there. This was quite an undertaking to put together.
Oh, absolutely. It was just about 8 years in the planning. And it also links to the City of Winchester's Green Circle. So it's just a wonderful opportunity to get outside in a beautiful landscape. And also there are art features along the trails, a wonderful bronze sculpture on loan from the Virginia Museum of Fine Art, a sculpture, My Friend Red, that was acquired for the museum. Just last week on Friday, a 7 bends bench was installed outside the entrance to the museum. So as time goes on, the landscape is going to grow, more flowers, trees, and shrubs will be planted, more artworks will be installed, and actually there'll be a permanent installation on the trails early in 2021 as well. There's a outdoor photography exhibition that we're moving from the South Field to the trails at the MSV, which are photographs of the Appalachian Trail. So it's an outdoor experience, it's an exercise experience, and it's also an art experience. So the trails will be changing and growing throughout the years.
I love that idea. So when we wrapped up talking with Nancy about the Norman Rockwell exhibit, we touched a little bit on the COVID precautions that you guys have at the museum right now. Even with COVID, you guys are still doing programs. You're still moving full steam ahead with a lot of the things that you have going on at the museum.
Absolutely. And one of the things that, we did launch, it's hard to believe it's been about a year, was a tremendous amount of virtual programming. And some of the on-site programs, they are a smaller capacity to allow for physical distancing. So if you want to participate, we encourage early registration and masks are required. But our online programming has really a almost limitless participation level. And I'd like to ask folks to consider, if they're Norman Rockwell fans or want to learn a little bit more about Norman Rockwell. We've got an expert from the National Museum of American Illustration, which is the organization that coordinated and is traveling Norman Rockwell's America. She'll be on a lunch and learn. It's a program at noon on Thursday, March 18th, and it's a pay what you can. So if you've got something, we'd love to have it. If you can't put anything in the kitty, please join the program and learn a little bit about Norman Rockwell, his career, and the golden age of American illustration. And then Nancy, who is a wealth of information, will be doing kind of a happy hour. So the lunch and learn is obviously, have lunch from the comfort of home and listen to the program. Or if you prefer a cocktail, join us on Tuesday, April 6th for Nancy, where she'll do again, this is virtual, hosted on Zoom at 5:30, and she'll pair look at works in the exhibition with a vodka martini. So she'll tell you how to make a vodka martini and also talk about Norman Rockwell. And that again is another pay what you can program. And all we ask for folks is that they register in advance so we can send them the Zoom link. But those are two virtual programs. And we've got, folks can check out our website, themsv.org, for all our spring programs. We're getting ready to update our summer programs in the weeks ahead. But there is always something to do here.
So tell me about membership, because I know that plays a large role, and it gets me a deal on some of the in-person and virtual events if I'm a member of the MSV.
Well, absolutely. The most important thing folks get with membership is free year-round admission to the museum, including special exhibitions such as Norman Rockwell's America. So you could come every day for free. But membership also allows you free or discounted programming at the museum. And we've got individual rates all the way up to, family and senior family rates. So there's a whole menu you can choose from, but it's very, very cost effective, and it also supports the museum. So we are happy to say we have close to 3,000 members at this point, so visit. And if you want to test us out for free, thanks to our corporate sponsor, Howard Shockey and Sons, every Wednesday is a free admission day at the museum. So come on out and experience what it would be like as a member. Come in for free, but the trails are open for free every day, 7 a.m. to dusk. And currently the museum operates on winter hours from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. But when the gardens open, we'll be open 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. And the museum is open Tuesday through Sunday. And by museum, I mean the gallery buildings and formal gardens when they open. So they're open Tuesday through Sunday and closed Monday, but the trails are open 7 days a week.
Well, now that I feel like I am personal close friends with Nancy, I may have to do one of these happy hours in person instead of virtual, because I would love to know how to make a vodka martini.
Yes, well, yeah, Nancy's great. She's done a couple different cocktails, and they're really enjoyable. That one just happens to focus on Norman Rockwell, but we've got we offer them every month. So if people are interested in hopping on a art at happy hour in March. We are featuring Bloomery Sweet Shine and a Garnet Jex painting of Harper's Ferry, a fishing camp along the Shenandoah. And that happy hour is March 24th at 5:30 p.m. And that features Curry Chavone, who's our manager of youth and family programming. So the art at happy hours are a great way to meet different staff at the museum, learn about different cocktails, and take a kind of a closer look at some works of art, either in our collection or on view in a special exhibition.
Fantastic. So tell me one more time, if somebody is listening and they want to become a member, they want to get more information about the exhibits or the gardens, where is the best first place for them to go?
Online, themsv.org, or give us a call, 662-1473, extension 235, or stop by anytime. The first floor is always open Tuesday through Sunday, and there's a wonderful regional art show in there now, in Art in the Halls, that is always free. And the first floor is getting a lot of use because that's where the restrooms are. So people who who use the trails, you get to walk by some wonderful works of art on your way to the restrooms. But again, stop by. And I will say, on beautiful sunny days, there is a parking lot at the entrance to the trails, but there's plenty more parking. Part of an addition to the museum, when we built the trails, we added several hundred parking spaces in front of the gallery building, and you can access the trails from that parking lot as well. So if you drive by and you see the circular parking lot at the entrance full, come on in, and there's plenty of parking. And as I mentioned, with the network of trails, different ways to access the trail system. There's no beginning and there's no end.
Fantastic. And I know you guys are also on Facebook, you're on Twitter, you're on Instagram, you're on all the social medias.
We are, yeah. So check us out. And if just pull up our website, and you can hit the links at the bottom and get right to those different channels.
Awesome. Well, we are going to wrap up our conversation for Tourism Tuesday. We have been chatting with Nancy Huth. She is the Deputy Director of Arts and Education. Julie Armel is the Deputy Director of Community Relations at the Museum of the Shenandoah Valley. TheMSV.org is the place to go. Ladies, thank you both so much for taking some time out of your morning to have this conversation with me. I appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having us. And we look forward to seeing everybody at the museum.
I will be back tomorrow. I'll have a brand new episode of The Valley Today ready to go for you. It is The Valley Business Today, and we are having a pretty cool conversation with Dr. Dave Miles from Dr. Dave's Leadership Corporation. We talk a little bit about leadership and assessments and all of that stuff. It kind of sounds boring, but it was really kind of funny. So meet me back here tomorrow, just a few minutes after noon, to have a listen.